Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Terrace Talk. Norwich City host Sheffield Wednesday at Carrow Road in front of supporters. For Norwich, the first time since October, but if we're being realistic, probably the first time since March. And Norwich City Norwich City fans get welcome back to Carrow Road with a Tony Pulis team. I'm delighted to be joined by Norwich City fan Andrew Kent and also the Wednesday Week podcast contributor and Sheffield Wednesday fan, Dan Fudge. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. Andrew, we'll come to you first because you tell us a nice anecdote before we hit record about your living situation. I asked you if you're going to the game on Saturday, and the answer, for the reasons you'll make clear now, is a resounding no.
Yeah, so I live in Northern Ireland and have done since 2014. I was a season ticket holder up until that point, but my wife is from Northern Ireland, and we had our first child in 2013 and moved here shortly after. Once it became apparent that it was going to be far easier to be this side of the water and for childcare reasons. But no, season ticket holder for 25 years, and since being here, I've been to probably on average about 4 games a year. Until March time, obviously for the same reasons as everyone else. So I get a lot of people are sort of complaining they can't get to games and stuff, and so it's tough for everyone. But it's good that 2,000 are going to be back on Saturday.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the impacts of those fans a little bit later on. But since sort of moving to Northern Ireland and maybe having to follow Norwich City from afar, has that kind of changed the nature of your relationship with the club? Has it grown stronger? Some people find that when they move away, they actually become more invested in what's happening at Carrow Road because it kind of reminds them of home, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. I have to say the stuff that the Pinkin does and a lot of the other Norwich podcasts, obviously you've got Along Come Norwich, you've got TNC as well doing some great stuff. It's the things that I pick up on a lot and have done over the years. It seems to have, again, become a lot stronger in the last 7, 8, 9 months, which is great. But no, my relationship with the club has always been, it's been my, I want to say first love, but I know she's going to watch this when it goes out. So second love, honestly, second. And yeah, being able to watch games like last night on the Red Button, although the coverage was ropey at best and the performance was even worse. They just give you those moments to kind of step away from life and transport me back to a place where I spent 25, I was going to say happy years, but it's Norwich, and it's not always happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew there, just about manoeuvring himself away from the doghouse for this evening. So that's good. Dan, thank you very much for joining us. From a Sheffield Wednesday perspective, and we'll dive into sort of the game in a moment. Obviously, Sheffield is in Tier 3, isn't it? So you haven't been able to welcome fans back to Hillsborough, but there's a situation where they're going to be playing in a stadium where there are supporters. So is it a positive? We had a Coventry fan on last week who, although they can't get to games at the moment at St Andrews, did view it as a positive that there were going to be fans returning. Are you the same, or is it kind of frustrating for you to see?
No, I don't really know. I've been listening to a lot of websites, online things like TalkSport, for example, that are saying things along the lines of this is the first step going forward, and if it means some get it and some don't, then that so be it. I don't think 1,000 fans or 2,000 fans or even 4 in some stadiums is going to make a world of difference, if I'm honest. I'm just really happy that there are people there. I'm a little bit disappointed. I think it was Luton Town last night that didn't have the bars open, so I can imagine there being a fair few disgruntled fans operating in North London there. But no, it's a great start. We have to start somewhere, and this is where we start. I think it's amazing that we're starting to drip feed it in, as it were.
How does it change the dynamic for an away team, do you think? How will and we'll get on to Sheffield Wednesday, your season, obviously Tony Pulis coming in, but from his perspective, how will it change how he sets up and approaches it? Can you use it as kind of a us against the world sort of mentality when there is fans in the ground and none of which are your own?
I think us against the world is written on Tony Pulis's head when he takes that cap off. You know what I mean? I don't think it'll make a world of difference. It will have that us against them feeling because, we're the away team. And, no matter what ground we go to, how many fans are there, Jordan Rhodes will still be rubbish.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that man in a little while. Andrew, I'm afraid we are going to have to touch upon Wednesday's defeat against Luton Town for Norwich, 3-1 loss. Look, it's hard, as I mentioned in my video verdict last night, it's hard to be overly critical given the injury list that they do have at the moment, but this looked like a game just too far for Norwich City at the moment, didn't it?
It did. I think actually done. I think there's a couple of points I want to make on last night. Firstly, obviously we're down to the bare bones and everyone's aware of that. And I don't want to be all Paul Lambert about that one. But I think Saturday's game against Coventry and last night, the sort of lack of substitutes, and I know traditionally Farke has been lambasted for his lack of substituting before, say, the 75th, 80th minute. This season he's been good, he's been proactive, and it's helped. But I think in the last two games they've both been crying out for changes, freshening up, lads that are really sort of busting themselves because they know they're the only ones in the team and going to be for the foreseeable. I think Omatoy coming on with 5 minutes to go was a real shame. I think bringing Zimmerman on for Buendia was baffling at best. But yeah, I suppose on the whole, it was a game too far. I don't think the back four covered themselves in any glory. I don't think Michael McGovern covered himself in any glory either. And he would, for me, would be a real worry going forward. But hopefully Saturday, Pookies back, which I think will make it. Well, hopefully Pookies back will make a huge difference to the forward play, which I thought was it was a bit stagnant last night. To be honest, we looked very toothless, very congested, no real width from Aaron's even, who you normally rely on to get forward and get wide. He didn't really seem to do that last night. So, on the whole, I suppose there's mitigating circumstances, but when you looked at that side, you still thought there's enough there to beat Luton, who admittedly played really well and looked like a side that had been scolded after being beaten 4-0 in Cardiff on Saturday.
Let's talk about those substitutions that you talk about, or maybe the lack of. Look, Daniel Farke is a coach. I think throughout his time at Norwich, there's a lot of things you could maybe throw in his direction, but being someone that doesn't give opportunities to young players, I don't think necessarily is one of them. No. Is it about protecting those players at the moment? Because obviously we know how Norwich City do things. The sort of youth players that they have high hopes for, they're all out on loan. So these are players either learning their trade, learning the style of football, or are at the club for sort of their own development, really. Is it about protecting them? And I guess on the flip side, there's an argument to be made that, look, if this is the squad, let's say until January, which feasibly it could be with the exception of maybe a few coming back from injury, then Daniel Farke has to utilise that, particularly in such an intense schedule. Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest thing to take with the last two games and him not using the young lads on the bench. Is if this was under previous managers, say Alex Neil, Lambert, maybe a few others, you'd maybe understand why the young lads haven't come off the bench. I think when you've got a coach like Farke who has put such trust and faith in Aarons and Lewis and Godfrey, then you think, well, he's going to drop these lads in and give them a fair crack, especially when we're down to the bare bones. You can see players getting tired. You can see it's not working. I think that was more of it last night. It wasn't necessarily that they all looked completely exhausted and we were clinging on to a 1-0 lead. We were 3-1 behind. We barely created anything. And I know the stats tell another story, but we didn't create a decent chance last night. So I think that's probably where a lot of people can't get their head around it. Is this is a guy who's put such faith in the young lads, and Omatoy and Dixon Peters have been talked up.
Probably not to the glowing terms of a Max Aarons or a Jamal Lewis or a Ben Godfrey. But I felt last night around about probably even 60 minutes, there was nothing happening. Chuck a couple of them on. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel it kind of got to a stage where they just needed to maybe to rest some legs. December, the club posted a graphic yesterday of all the games in December, and it's absolute madness, really. Dan, let's come to you then. 1-1 draw with Reading on Wednesday. Talk us through that, because I've seen and I have a fair few Reading voices on my social media. Maybe felt quite hard done by after that. From a Wednesday perspective, how do you reflect on that? Was it a point gained as far as you're concerned?
Well, the Reading feedback that we've had in terms of the videos that have been put onto social media and things like that has always been a lot of them have been exacerbated. I mean, have you ever had a player sign and there's been a YouTube video of their greatest hits, and you're like, well, I could do a video like that made me look like Premier League quality. You know what I mean? I blame Owen Hargreaves for that, but They do have a right to be aggrieved on a couple of occasions. But then again, so does Sheffield Wednesday. I'd have never said that was a sending off last night. He got the ball, and then the momentum carried him through, which I believe now they call dangerous play. I'm a 40-year-old man, grew up in the 80s in Yorkshire. Dangerous play wasn't a phrase that existed when I was playing football. I think I remember playing an away day in Barnsley, and the referee screaming at me, "No offsides on a Sunday." So the game's changed, the game's moved on, and I have to deal with it, and so do the Reading fans. But as far as the game last night, it was once again a textbook Tony Pulis game. I can't express to you my sheer abject disappointment on getting Tony Pulis in the hot seat at Sheffield Wednesday. I'm genuinely really upset about it. I felt that we were in a false position because we got caught cheating, and then we got given 6 points back. Gary Monk did have to go because the last two managers we've had after Carlos Carvalho took us to the playoffs twice have been dreadful. The football's been poor. The attacking quality's not been there. The recruitment has been absolutely dreadful. And then we got a new appointment in Josh Lukai, who looked like a cross between Freddie Mercury's dad and Droopy the dog, who had the personality of a potato, and his best result for Sheffield Wednesday was getting 0-0 draw with Sheffield United. You know what I mean? Pardon me if I don't start doing the parades in the street just yet. And then Josh went, and then we had Gary Monk, and started out very well. I'm surprised there's not a Sheffield Wednesday podcast called Third at Christmas. And then we lost to Stoke on Boxing Day, and I've never seen such a change in form. And we never got it back. And so I thought, here we have an opportunity now to start again with the new season and all the rest of it. And I was encouraged by the recruitment. Getting in players like Izzy Brown, who was at Luton last season. I thought that's a great signing. But then we signed Che Dunkley, who is made of Lego, and or Papadon. I don't know. He's made of something. And then we've got Dean Windass, who's Josh Windass. Sorry, it's a regular.
We signed him 25 years ago.
Yeah, we got Josh Windass, who is a threat in terms of his goals per game ratio. He's been very good, but he got sent off for kung fu kicking somebody in the head against Preston the other week. So it's a Tony Pulis affair. Our best player with the ball is Barry Bannon. And our biggest issue that we've got with Barry Bannon is that he comes very deep to get the ball from the defenders, because everything has to go through Barry. And if you neutralise him, we're done. Or he drops deeper and deeper. That's a big issue of ours. So having a player that's so good with the ball, who can really ping a ball across the field, it's really frustrating to watch him stood between the centre-backs. Or, now Tony Pulis has taken over, stood there getting neck ache. So, then there needs to be a change in attitude, because we've played 3 games under Tony Pulis and we have had, brace yourself, 3 shots on target.
Yeah, I was actually going to quote that statistic to you in terms. I mean, you mentioned abject. It kind of feels a little bit like that. And before we'll get on to Tony Pulis a bit later. And I mean, you've kind of expressed your feelings, but in terms of Sheffield Wednesday generally, I know there will be a lot of Norwich fans watching this, listening to this, thinking Sheffield Wednesday, massive club, probably shouldn't be at the level they're at if we're being realistic. What has gone wrong? And maybe we don't have enough time in this particular show to describe it, but in terms of the club, and it feels like they've kind of lurched between managers, and maybe the ownership hasn't been the most stable, although that he seems to have put a lot of money in the club. Why hasn't it quite worked out in the last few years, in a nutshell, I guess?
Well, when we had Milan Mandaric in charge, he rescued our club. He assumed a lot of the debt, he steadied the books, and then made us a sellable asset. Here's a club that's been referred to many times as a sleeping giant, just like yourselves have in the past. And so he sold us to Thai fisherman Dapon Chansiri, who is, for all intents and purposes, John West that's written on the side of the tuna packets. The guy's not short of a few quid. So we thought, here we go, kids, this is happening. Premier League football, here we go. And then Carlos Carvalho came in out of nowhere, and we'd never heard of him. And then he turned up and took us to a playoff final. Then the year after took us to the playoffs against Huddersfield. And then the third season, how he got a third bite of the cherry to try and take us up again, I found astounding. Now, since then, it's become very apparent that Dapon Chansiri isn't a football guy, and tries to work on things like rely on people's honour and their integrity and all these other, Eastern phrases that come out. Now, we know that football just isn't like that. It's full of some, underhanded people. And I think he's just coming to terms with that. For example, we set up a board, a footballing board, and part of that board was Glenn Rhodes, the old West Ham manager and QPR defender from
Norwich manager. Yeah.
And and he was eyeing up getting the job for all intents and purposes. But because we then got in Josh Lukai and not Glenn, he then left. You know what I mean? So his job was just a jobs for the boys. You know what I mean? So, and then we had a CEO in Catherine Meyer, who was at Charlton for a bit, and I think she's now moved on to Belgium. And she was great. She was one of those big, powerful, scary women. The ones that blokes are afraid of. She was great. One of those big.
Angela Merkel.
Yeah, she was like Karen Brady, but 10 years younger. Like, you know what I mean? You'd be like, yeah, whatever you say. You know what I mean? One of them. And I really liked it. And you could really tell that she was getting frustrated, because to bring this full circle, what we found out is that the chairman was having a controlling influence in literally every decision that was getting made. How much do the cigarette lighters with an owl's badge get sold for in the club shop, to who makes the kit? And, we used to have these football fun days that used to take place on a Saturday, where the kids would play five-a-side. They'd set up a bar in the car park. What you refer to in the NFL at Wembley as a fan zone. You know what I mean? We used to have those. They all went when Catherine went. So it seems that because Dapon wants such a controlling influence in literally every decision, and him not spending his time in the UK as much as we'd like, we're starting to lose ground on our competitors quite significantly. And then now we've tried to find loopholes to get around the FFP, and look at us now, starting the season 12 points adrift.
Yeah, it's an intriguing situation, certainly from the outside. Andrew, I think Glenn Rhodes is certainly a name that sends shudders down Norwich City fans' spine, and I think everyone will say, from a Norwich City perspective, that Sheffield Wednesday probably got off lightly there, right?
Danny dodged a massive bullet by not giving the guy the job. He couldn't run a bath. He borderline destroyed us back in 2009, and it was only for the grace of well, I was going to say Paul Lambert, but it seems a bit wrong saying that now. But yeah, Paul Lambert, Ian Culverhouse, I think I'll shout out, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this will back that up. And then Delia and Michael and David McNally at the top of the club that saved us. But yeah, you've not given him the job and given it to the guy who had the personality of a potato was probably the best move.
I'm sure a lot of Norwich City fans will echo Andrew's thoughts. Andrew, let's talk about the striking situation at the moment at Norwich. Obviously, Timmy Pookie, Jordan Hugill, Adam Eder, currently all out. We filming this ahead of Daniel Farke's pre-match press conference on Friday. So, although Timmy Pookie is expected to return, that's not absolutely 100% certain as of yet. What do you make of that situation? Because it's fair to say, not just in terms of having a lack of a striker, but I felt in general, Norwich City looked fairly toothless against Luton on Wednesday.
Mm. Yeah, I'd like to reference a tweet I put out last Friday when it became apparent that Pookie was going to be out. That at under 12s, I scored 38 goals in one season. That would have been back in '96. But I still feel I've got a little bit of that in me. So if Daniel is watching and wants to transport me over from Northern Ireland, I'm well up for it. But in all seriousness, you mentioned it there, and you'd also said it in your verdict that we look toothless, and the runs that Pookie makes, not just for himself, but for creating spaces for Buendia and Stiepermann and whoever's playing behind him is a huge part of our game. Without him, without Hugill, who hasn't been able to do that, again, I think I'm plagiarising from what you said in your verdict, but without him, who hasn't been able to do that, but is obviously a natural striker, and the same with Eder. Last night with Poeta up front, it didn't work. Stiepermann up there, again, doesn't work. He wants to drop deep. So I think we know how Daniel Farke's press conferences seem to go at the moment. There always seems to be another injury or a lengthening of an injury. Hopefully, he says the magic words that Pookie is back. Whether he be fit enough to start is another matter. I think it's a risk with a hamstring to throw someone straight back in, but we kind of need him. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Do we risk playing him and potentially losing him, or do we risk playing him on the basis that we know that what he'll do and the link he has with Buendia more than anything else? I think those two, when they link up, there's no better pairing, if you like, in this division. And we've seen that against Bristol City. We've seen it against Stoke. So yeah, we need him back. Without him, I personally, would play Omotoi or Dixon Peters up there. I think a natural striker would work better. I also think the 3 or 4 behind need some time out of the squad. I think Josh Martin last night looked a bit like a lad who played 3 games in a week when he's not used to playing probably more than 1 game every couple of weeks for the 23s. So yeah, I think we need Pookie, and prayer mats need to be out in every Norwich household.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if he's fit, he plays, right? And even if you get 60 minutes out of him, you would hope that Norwich can get themselves into a position where maybe then it becomes easier to introduce a young lad for the last half an hour or whatnot. But as Dan has outlined, and as Norwich fans will know, this is a Tony Pulis side coming to Carrow Road. It is going to be about how Norwich City can break down Sheffield Wednesday. Having someone like him and someone like Emi Buendia is going to be crucial if we look at this match and maybe how it's going to pan out, because I don't think it's any surprise how Tony Pulis will set his side up on Saturday.
No, I was interested to hear what Dan said about Tony Pulis.
We're all waiting. We'll get there, don't worry.
Well, he's already kind of alluded to it, but I follow a few Wednesday fans on Twitter, and I think the opinions on him were pretty unanimous in that there was not a lot of happiness when he got the job. I myself was a little bit surprised. I thought they might go down a different route. I think possibly the situation that they're in, and Dan can sort of cover this better, but I think maybe the situation that they're in leads to Pulis getting the job because he's a safe pair of hands. He'll make a team solid, make him hard to beat. They're in a relegation fight, so you want that side of it. And I look at the squad, and I look at the team that was put out last night, and I thought possibly under a more adventurous manager, that's a dangerous side. Now, I don't know. Obviously, didn't watch the game because I was watching our game, unfortunately. But they look to me like there is potential there. But obviously, the manager's going to do what he does. So I think we know that. Yeah, they're going to be tight. They're going to be hard to break down. They're going to be direct. They're going to be dangerous from set pieces, which everybody is against Norwich. And that probably fills me full of fear the most. The set pieces, the long balls into the box. McGovern last night, I think I'm right in saying this anyway, didn't take anything cleanly. Balls into the box, shots. There might have been one shot in the first half he took cleanly, but the rest were sort of pushed out in front of him. There was a cross in the first half, towards the end of the first half, that he dropped. That was, my 3-year-old son could have caught it. So I have a sort of a deep fear that although Dan's kind of talked them down, and if Shea Dunkley plays because he's made a Lego and Poppadoms, Pookie will probably run rings around him, but if they throw balls into the box and play Pulis ball, then it might be a level playing field or tip in their favour, unfortunately, which I don't like saying, but it's just kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah, defending set pieces, I think, is going to be a really important topic on Saturday, especially given Michael McGovern's lack of physicality. Right, Dan, I'll just say the words Tony Pulis, and I'll hand over to you.
I'm absolutely gutted. I'm devastated. We've had some exciting managers over the time I've been a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and it seems like a 4-to-1 ratio. You know what I mean? For every Carlos Carvalhal, there's a Tony Pulis, or there's 3 Tony Pulises. There's a Josh Lukai and a Gary Monk. Like, I feel that because of the statistic that Tony Pulis seems to get bandied around every time he takes a job in, who's never been relegated. Well, right. You know what I mean? I've never been set on fire, but I don't get any headlines. Do you know what I mean? Like what? That's not a win. But I think it's the chairman panicking. Hey, we might go down here with this then 12-point deficit. So we're going to need to steady the ship. But then I think the day before we gave him the job, we got 6 points back, because we're only half cheating apparently. So but we'd already rolled the dice on a manager that would keep us up, and I don't doubt he'll keep us up. I still feel that Sheffield Wednesday are in a false position, but do I see us picking up 3 points here and 3 points there? No, I think we're just going to draw every game until the end of the season and hope that's good enough, and hope that Derby is still gash by the end of the season. I can't seem to understand how in a time when the fans were so disengaged with the club and so disengaged with the chairman and how he's operating proceedings, we get in somebody that is essentially a punchline across the football world right now. His brand of football died 10 years ago. It changed. Football has moved on. As I've been alive, we all wanted to be Maradona and Gary Lineker, and we wanted to beat a player and take him on. Then in the 90s, everybody wanted to be David Beckham and whipping the crosses in like Rivaldo. And then Jose Mourinho came along and changed the formation and changed football, after Wenger did in the 90s and all the rest of it. And we are now so far past the line where Tony Pulis was. To quote from Friends, that line is a dot to him. And I don't know how we are going to move forward and score a goal from open play, because I think the goal we scored against Reading was our first goal in open play since the opening day of the season. You guys sat there talking to me now about defending set pieces. That's music to my ears, because we have got no threat whatsoever in the box or in and around the box in order to try and score a goal that's not a free kick, a corner, a penalty, because it's poor. The football we're playing is poor, and it's a complete misuse of the players that we have. We've got Barry Bannon who can spread a ball, but like I said earlier, he's going to get neck ache. We've got Izzy Brown who can really break up play, a really intelligent footballer, but again, the ball's going to bypass him. We've got Liam Palmer, who has been a much maligned figure in a Sheffield Wednesday shirt, but over the last 2 or 3 seasons has really come into his own. Broke into the Scotland squad, who have just qualified for the Euros, and has been finding these crosses in for the strikers in Scotland and for ours more than he ever has done before. But again, he's going to be on right back duty. You know what I mean? Full on. That's what it is. So I feel that we're just going to just I'll edit the phrase. I'll change the vowels. We're just going to shothouse our way to staying up, and it's quite it's horrible to watch. And I don't want to go into a third season going, it's just a consolidation season. We're just consolidating, because I'm bored of consolidating. I want to win every game 5-4. Get me Kevin Keegan from 1995 in rather than Tony Pulis. I don't care. Let's just at least try and excite somebody, because we seem to forget, you know, as fans, we feel like we own part of the club, and it's part of the community and all this. And Catherine Mayer, who I mentioned earlier during her time at Charlton, referred to football fans as customers, and that's what we are. We are customers to an entertainment business, and getting Tony Pulis in is booking a working men's club singer instead of Liberace.
Wow. So as you can see there, Dan clearly on the fence about the Tony Pulis appointment. I want to ask you about someone else. Obviously, Norwich fans know him well, Jordan Rhodes. You've kind of said at the top of the show maybe how his Sheffield Wednesday career has gone, but he's really loved in these parts, as I'm sure you're aware, for that loan spell a couple of years ago. It's fair to say what Sheffield Wednesday spent £10 million on him, hasn't quite lived up to that price tag, and maybe isn't such a popular figure at Hillsborough.
It's such a shame, because, you know, every piece of media you see about him, he looks like the nicest guy in the world. When he starts his interviews with his high-pitched, you go, oh, bless you, you want to put your arm around him. You want to give him a cuddle. You want to say, come here, son, here. It's all right, don't worry about it. But we've now had him for best part of 4 years now. And we've had nothing from him. He's had 4 managers. He's had times to get his shirt back, essentially. And there was one day 2 seasons ago where Jordan Rhodes turned up away at Forest and scored a first half hat-trick. And we went, is he back? I didn't get the email. He's back. Jordan Rhodes is back. Everybody, don't panic. It's all right. We're going to win the league. And we never saw him again. And we never saw that player again. I think he actually went on loan to you guys at the back end of that season, where he scored about 2 or 3 goals, I think, in about 8 appearances from the bench. So it's devastating. I've never wanted it to work so much with Jordan Rhodes as I have done with any other player. But I'm afraid he's a shadow of the player he was. And what is he? He's only 28, 29. He's only a young kid. But in Blackburn, Huddersfield, and in East Anglia, he's a very favoured. They like him out there. But as far as we're concerned in Sheffield, you can have him back if you want.
Well, I know Norwich definitely tried to get him back, and there was obviously the war of words between Stuart Webber and Sheffield Wednesday's owner, and I know maybe they're not particularly huge fans of each other. We'll leave it at that. Andrew, let's come to you then. What are you expecting from this Saturday's game, and how do you feel Norwich City should approach it? Let's go on the basis Teemu Pukki is fit, because we like to be positive. How do you assess this one for Norwich City?
Firstly, I'm hoping that we somehow kidnap Jordan Rhodes and put him on our bench rather than Sheffield Wednesday's bench. But no, I go back to what I said earlier. I'm very 50-50 on it. It's the positives will be Farke tomorrow around about this time, or whatever time his press conferences says. Teemu Pukki's fit, so we know that he'll start. That will give us the attacking edge that we need. However, I'd also like him to say that Michael McGovern has picked up an injury, which is horrible to say, but it would help. I don't think there'd be any harm in throwing Daniel Barden in the sticks, because, as we've alluded to earlier, and Dan said, they obviously target set pieces. It's going to be their main threat. We're incredibly weak on set pieces, and with McGovern in the sticks, trying to play the way that we play. If they've done any research on last night, they'll know that They've just got to press like Luton did when McGovern gets the ball and when Hanley and Gibson get the ball, and there's chances to be had there. So I know Dan said he wanted to win every game 5-4. If we've got Pookie, and if we defend like we have done in the last 2 or 3 games, you might get your 5-4, Dan. You really might.
I think you and I have some proper ding-dongs, don't we? I think there was one season, I think it was last year, you absolutely battered us, and then we had a 5-1 the year before. We have some great games. We had some really good ones over the years. So if we combine the 2 winning scorelines and have like a 9-goal thriller, I'll be all right. If I'm going to put money on it now, bear with me, kids. Stay on the line.
There you go. There's a question for anyone watching. Has Tony Pulis ever had a 9-goal thriller? If he has, then we'd like to hear about it. Andrew, just as let's wind this down. Then how do you? Let's have your sort of score prediction and maybe how you see the game going from that perspective.
If you're going to give me Pookie up front and McGovern in goal, 3-2, possibly, and that's with a bit of luck and them letting in more goals than they probably should under Tony Pulis. If Pookie doesn't start and it's McGovern in goal, I sadly think we probably get beat by a couple.
Interesting. Dan, same for you, really. How do you see this game going, and what you feel in terms of score prediction? A draw, possibly?
It's going to be 0-0 or 1-1. That's exactly what it's going to be. There's going to be nothing else. There's going to be a point where we're going to go, and we'll score in the first 10 minutes from a corner set piece one from the training ground, and then we're going to defend for 90 minutes and attempt for the remaining 80 or 75, and then attempt to try and keep you out for so long. And when you've got strikers like Timor Pookie, then I can't see Tom Lees and Dominic Iorfa keeping that up.
Interesting. I was trying to think. I read a book. I'm pretty sure it was Steve Claridge's, but it was someone's book, and it was basically about when Tony Pulis came in as manager, and he said the first training session he put cones in probably each corner roughly, and lined all the players up and said, right, you're going to hit balls into that corner. That's how we're going to play. So that sort of sums him up, doesn't it? Gents, thank you very much for joining me. Dan, I don't know if this was helpful to you or not, but hopefully
I feel like it's therapy. I feel like I've got a lot off my chest. I have my own podcast, but they're all agreeing with me. You know what I mean? I feel like I've expanded my my opinions on Tony Pulis to a bigger audience, which I'm very happy with.
Well, there you go. And we're very happy to have you on. So thank you very much. Gents, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching. Let's see your score prediction down below. How do you see the game going on? Of course, make sure you leave it a like. Head to pinkin.com for all the latest Norwich City news and views. Will be at Carrow Road on Saturday for this one. Stay safe. See you soon.